Hello people, welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if this is your first time. Thank you for stopping by. I really appreciate it. My name is Chioma. Let's address the question that one of you asked me under one of my recent videos, and it's a question that I think is worth an entire video on its own, which is why I am doing this. So the question was, how did you guys manage studying and working and paying tuition? This is a question that I have addressed in several other videos, okay? I have addressed it. Did I say addressed it? I have addressed this question in parts, okay? And you will find bits and pieces in several videos that I have made on here, but maybe it's worthwhile to put everything in one video. Anyway, so how did we sustain our stay here financially, especially in those first few months, or maybe even in the first year after we arrived, given that my husband was an international student paying international fees and we came in as a family, right? In relation to the work aspect, when my husband was not studying, he was working. And because the kids were very young at that time, still 2 and 3 years old, it was a no-brainer for us. I was home with them. I didn't have a job yet. Because I know how to sew, right? It's a skill that I acquired. I decided I would set up a business from home. So in that aspect, it wasn't much of a problem for us. It wasn't too stressful to manage looking after the kids versus working, especially for me. But by the second year, things changed. I started my Master of Social Work course. But even before that, yes, I was sewing. I was getting orders, and there were times when I would be flooded with orders, other times when things were a little quiet. So to augment my income from the sewing, I took up a job on the side. A friend we made after we arrived here in Australia, right? She offered me a job at her family daycare center, and that job was to ferry children, or rather to drive kids from school back to her childcare center. She would pick them up from school, bring them to her family daycare, and then the parents of these children will pick them up at the end of the day. So it got to the point where it was difficult for her to manage, and she employed me as her driver, as the driver for that purpose. Obviously, it was just a few hours every day to do the school pick up and drop off at her center, right? But then 1 year later, when I started my Master of Social Work course, the story changed for us. And even though I am sharing this story and I believe that people would learn from it, I want you to understand that everyone's situation is going to be different. The visa that brings you into the country will also dictate how your life would be. Whether you're coming in as a single person or whether you're coming in as a family with young children or with older children will determine what kind of experience you have. So for us, it was that constantly changing dynamic according to what was happening with us at that time. So when I started my course, my husband and I then had a conversation about how to manage childcare. So basically, he would work during the day or attend his classes, and then I picked up a shift, an evening shift. After he came home from work or from classes, that was when I would go to my own job. But then I also had classes that would run late into the evenings sometimes. So he would look after the kids. But there were also inevitable days when our schedules were clashing. He either had to work or study at the same time that I was either also attending classes or needed to work. In such cases, we would look for another childcare arrangement. We would put the kids in casual care. Much further down the track, we found this arrangement that worked for us. I met this wonderful lady who I consider to be my sister now. She's not just a friend anymore, but she's my sister right now. She offered to start helping with the kids because she was staying home with her much younger twins at that time who had not yet started school. I actually met her at the school where my first daughter attended kindy. Her son was enrolled in the same school, and that was how we met. But she had these other twin girls at home who were much younger. She offered to help with my girls when I was working or when I was attending classes, and she would look after these girls, and it just became like a permanent arrangement. Of course, I eventually started paying her, but that was it. The other question was about tuition fees. So how were we able to raise tuition fees? A lot of other people have asked that question. So our tuition fees came partly from money that we raised through working here, all the different jobs that we did. in that time, but also partly from money that was coming from Nigeria. If you have watched the video about how we raised money to come to Australia, you would remember that I said that my husband had this huge amount of money he was being owed by the government because he had completed some contracts and he had not been paid by the time we left Nigeria. After we came to Australia, every once in a while we would hear that they were about to make a payment, and so my husband would try to contact people in Nigeria to lobby to make sure that we were paid as well. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it didn't work. And let me just tell you that for up to 6 years, or maybe even 7 years, as a matter of fact, as I'm making this video, I'm not even sure that all of that money has been paid. And this is 8 years later. But up to 6 years into our stay here in Australia, they had still not paid off all of that money. But every once in a while, they would release some funds, and so we just kept that as our savings in Nigeria. But the tricky thing about the money is that we couldn't rely on it, because sometimes school fees would be due, they had not paid anything, so we couldn't even rely on whether that money was coming in or not. We could not bank our hopes on that. So we were working really hard here at our casual jobs to raise that money. So yeah, it was a combination of that. I have seen international students that have been able to raise their tuition from the work that they do here. Okay, I have seen lots of international students who are able to do it. Is it easy though? No, it is not easy. And you have to keep that in mind. It is not easy at all. By the time I was in my first year, my husband was in his final year of school. So by the time I got into my second year, he had finished. And so he got a full-time job, and that obviously helped to ease the situation a bit. Now, he wasn't even in that job for long because, like I said, he's not a corporate kind of person. He's not interested in being employed. Okay, so he didn't last in that job, but at least he had the rights to work full-time, and so it was easier for him to work and raise even more money here in Australia, right? So what I was going to say is, if you're coming in here as an international student, it would be very wise for you to have at least one extra semester of tuition already saved. Apart from the first semester, which you would have already paid like part of the money or maybe even all of the money before you come into Australia to commence your studies, make sure you have another semester of your tuition fees paid. That will really help you, so that when you start working, you're not working with so much pressure because you're raising the next semester school fees. If you have one whole year of your tuition already saved, it will help you a lot. That will be my candid advice to everybody. And as I said in my previous video, I would always acknowledge that we were in a privileged position. At least we even had a business to sell. I did speak in that video about how we sold our business and we channeled all the funds into our relocation. Now, we did not use up everything for our relocation. It went that extra bit to pay for like our flight tickets, and by the time we sold off a lot of the other things that we owned at that time, we had more than enough to bring us into the country and a bit more in savings. Okay, so we did not start off with that struggle. Okay, we didn't start off with that struggle. We had a tidy little sum put away for tuition, at least for a few semesters. Okay, I guess the reason why it was really difficult for us was because it was not just one person studying, it was both my husband studying and myself. So that was quite challenging, but I acknowledge that we had a little safety net. Try your best. I know it's difficult. Talk is cheap. Whenever I say things like this, I realize that it's hard, but if you can, that will be my candid advice to you. So that is all I have to say on this subject. I hope you like this video. Okay, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.